Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my monologues. This one's a bit late going out because the lovely Julia and I have just got back from Burnley. We live down in Sussex, down on the south coast, and it's a 6-hour journey up the M40, up the M6 and around the M25, all this sort of thing, up there, zoom up, have a talk with some wonderful and awake people up in Burnley, and then we've had to come back because we've got to go to Hampshire tomorrow, and then we're in Exeter, and we're, on the road occasionally, sometimes not, and suddenly they come in fits and starts. And these talks that we are asked to do are groups of awake people who've got together, whether they're in Telegram groups or in WhatsApp groups or stand in the park groups, or they're just sort of sovereignty groups that have set themselves up all over the country. And it's been an absolute pleasure to go and do these over the last couple of years. I never expected to be doing this sort of thing. And as you can see, I'm in the garden because the sun is shining, and they're not spraying the sky today, thank goodness. Anyway, usually at these groups, and if you've been to one of them, it's always the same, sadly, that 95% of the people who turn up are in the same sort of age bracket as myself. There may be a few people younger, in their sort of mid-40s upwards into their 60s and 70s. And I suppose the reason for that is that these are the people who have been brought up in the old analogue way, in a way when perhaps the government and authority was the appearance was more benign. Technology wasn't as advanced, at least as far as we the punters are concerned, and life seemed to be a lot simpler as we grew up. As we've come into this digital age, younger generation are having to work far harder. Both parents are having to go out to work, or both couples are having to go out to work. They're being distracted left, right and centre, all over the place. However, some young people, and I think there's a growing number of them, who are waking up and understanding that things are not right. And as I was at this event, and it just finished, I was approached by a young chap who must have been in his early 20s, I suppose. And he said to me, Richard, it's great coming to these meetings and hearing these talks from all sorts of people from different disciplines and different experiences, sharing what's going on, and whistleblowing, telling experiences, or showing how to deal with things like the lawful and legal stuff. And he says, it's brilliant, but everybody is older than me, and it's very difficult to make friends who are in the same age bracket, because where's our future? Who are we going to work with? And I thought, this is a very important question, because it seems to me that youth centres and youth societies have been closed down, that young people have been very much isolated. They don't have those old friendships that perhaps, depending on how old you are watching this, that you and I would have had in those days where we met lots of friends who were on the same wavelength to a degree. Of course, in the waking up process, we've all lost a lot of friends and members of the family who think very differently and are not open-minded enough to even consider what we're saying, let alone follow what we're doing. And I thought it was worth mentioning this in a video, because, as he said, there must be more young people who are watching, but they're not able to meet and have groups and societies. Now, if there is, it would be great for anybody in the comments to mention where these groups and societies might be, whether they are more groups on WhatsApp or places on in Telegram, for younger people who can share their worries, concerns and solutions and successes. Because if you're young and you constantly turn up and there's a bunch of old fogies all the time, it's very difficult to relate your current experience and the problems that you have, whether you're still living at home, whether you're about to go to university, whether the friends around you are all switched off, with people who are 20, 30, 40 years older than you. We can all sympathise, but I don't have the solutions for people who are in their 20s. I wish I did, other than following, as much as one can, and that's staying in your power, obviously, and understanding that everything that you've been taught at school is part of the indoctrination. But I did say to him, there are these TikTok videos and reels, I think they're called, and various shorts that young people are watching. And people have sent me those, and it's clear that young people are waking up. And we do have to thank the government for helping everybody to wake up, because they're doing such a brilliant job at showing you that this type of government is not at all beneficial or ideal. But young people are the ones whose future are imminent. Ours, we've had a lot of the past, and obviously we still want a bit of a future, thanks very much. But it's the young people, and I have grandchildren, and I have children, and I think, what's their life going to be like in 10 years' time? Do I want to see them behind a 15-minute city? Do I want to see them having facial recognition wherever they go, and everything they buy tracked and traced, given permission to be able to purchase the things they want, those freedoms that up until now most of us have had a lot of enjoyment with? And it's not fair that that next generation will not have that. And many of us, of course, are fighting for that very reason and pushing back. We're not necessarily doing it for ourselves, but we are doing it for the next generation. But waking that next generation up is one of the biggest keys, because if we can get them to think for themselves, open-minded and sovereign, and realizing that actually they have the power by their numbers, then we're definitely onto a winner, because they're going to put, it's their future, their energy, their vitality, and their brains and brawn to a certain degree, especially if we're looking at new farmers and producing new things, rather than falling down the old corporate trap of dead-end jobs and just being a slave or a robot, or dealing with AI. The young people are the ones that need to come up to the plate and realise what's going on. And the last thing we want is them to think that these old fogies, they've got some good ideas, but they're just old and not really on our wavelength. For us, I've always said, I think we're the signposts. We are there to help and guide and bring them up and show them that there is a better future for them. But we need to find them. And I think that was the essence of what this young gentleman was saying to me, because he was quite concerned, and I felt really impotent to be able to immediately point him somewhere. So I suppose this quick video today, as we're all a bit knackered from our driving and what have you, is simply to say, tell me, so we can pass on that information. Are there groups? Are there places? Are you young watching this thinking, yeah, actually I'm in the same boat? We need to connect and bring these young people together so that we have a much more, not an army as such, but a resource, I suppose, of young, healthy people whose future that we can all help. Thank you to everybody who came along to any of the talks that I've been at. Really appreciate it. It's always good to see new blood there, as it were. It's very important that we see and encourage more people to come along and have an open mind, whether they agree with anything or not, it doesn't matter. And finally, as I often say, a big thank you to everybody who supports this channel, however you do it, but if it's financial, that's very kind. Links are in the description, etc., etc. You can donate there if you wish. I don't want to, push it down you, but when we do these trips, we don't really make any money out of them, and sometimes we make a loss in order just to talk to people. So we appreciate the donations very much. Anyway, I'm going to smoke my pipe now and have a cup of tea and just relax for a bit. I've got a stack of emails. By the way, if you have emailed me and you haven't heard from me, I apologise. It's very tricky when we're running around to keep up with everything. I will see you on the next video. Thanks very much.